Hi, I'm Saskia Martinez. I use they, them pronouns, and I was the set designer slash model builder for the Butterfly Queen.
Alrighty, hi, my name is Kate Bell. I use any pronouns, and I was the set painter, scenic artist, and set dresser for the Butterfly Queen. Audience love the portals as a device. How do you plan for diversity and continuity between settings on screen?
One of the things that's important for continuity is establishing clear rules about how the portals get used. That was one thing that Liam and Shauna and I talked about a lot, is that every portal you go through it once and then that door closes. Um, for all of the different portals on screen, it was helpful that we were drawing from uh, sources that were close to us, so objects from the farm, or sourcing objects from neighbors and that sort of thing. Because all of these objects were of the world of the farm that we were filming on, it created a lot of continuity just in the objects that we had available to us. And then using paint treatments, such as the spray paint that you see throughout the movie, or distressing the objects with paint to make them look worn and used in similar ways, are other ways that we created continuity. And in terms of uh, finding a wide variety of objects, we pretty much thought about anything that has a door, that could be a door, that looks like a door, things that opened and closed, um, everything from refrigerators to suitcases, things that use that mechanic in our everyday lives, like a Mary Poppins bag throughout the movie. How many gallons of paint were used for the film? And were you yourself ever clean of paint during your time on set?
I'll answer the easier question here. No, I was covered in paint for about 3 months, and I loved it. So there were a couple of different types of paint that we were using. There was the black paint that honestly I think got the most mileage from the club scene and for the I forget what it was called, but it was Ash's like treehouse. That's what it was called for Ash's treehouse. That got a lot of mileage, and I would say we probably used 5 to 10 gallons of black paint. We got these big 5 gallon jugs, and we definitely cracked into the second of the 5 gallon jugs of black paint at some point, but I don't think we used it totally. White paint was also, I would say, about 5 gallons, and then each of the individual colors had their own gallon of paint that me and Liam had gone to the one Lowe's in that part of Vermont to go and source. And we used the references that Saskia had put for color matching each of the individual colors. So any of the kind of spray paint that has any kind of life to it, any kind of color to it, there's a gallon of that sitting somewhere in Rygate, Vermont that is partially used. So I'd say probably between 20 and 30 gallons of paint.
Wild. Yeah, I feel like people never think about the fact that, of course, if something is painted black as a base, like you got to do that step as well. You're using a lot of
Exactly.
paint to cover that.
We got to get the moodiness in there. And then the bathroom is also based in black and a couple of the exterior scenes. I'm remembering all of the things. It's funny for such a colorful movie, I would say that the color was used the most sparingly as far as paint goes, like actual gallons of it, and the black and white were used in the most excess. But yeah, we used a good amount of paint. And I would say that there wasn't a moment that I was on that farm that I did not have at least like some paint on my body, which I think is a scenic artist's natural state. if you
So
if you're
real.
like Saskia.
I definitely relate.
Most of your set design work was completed prior to your time on set. What crew jobs did you get to sample instead?
Yes. So originally, when I signed on to work for this movie, I was going to be able to be on set for the whole time that we were shooting. But I ended up with another job opportunity and moved across the country and only came back for the final week of filming, which was a great time because everybody had really settled into their roles. And what I did was I filled in whenever we needed an extra person. So I moved lights, as I think the term is a grip, I'm not familiar with the electrics department, but I moved a light back and forth to pretend to be a train. I was in the monster costume for one of the monster scenes. I held a boom mic, working with our lovely sound person, Cass, who is incredible. Um, wow, what else did I do? I mean, running around, getting props, helping put finishing touches on scenes. But it was amazing to come in and see all the incredible work that you'd done and that everybody else had done, and then to get to join in and be an extra and try on all these different roles on a film set that I'd never gotten to do before. The film was shot on the director Liam's family farm. What kind of makeshift spaces did we use for sets?
Oh, what kind of makeshift shift spaces did we not use? I this I have to say this is like a one of a kind experience. I'd never worked on a movie previously, and so I had absolutely no expectations. And I feel like every single one of them was altered in some way. It was so fun because were all of these like found spaces. I would say the one that people reference the most in like reference to what I did on the show was the nightclub, because that is literally just the end section of a barn that is like painted with all of these stencils that Saskia kind of drafted for me. And but like the bathroom scene for the nightclub is just downstairs in that same barn next to like a bunch of like animal troughs. Like it's like in this like very specific like little region of the world. There were things like the prom was shot and like I think the town hall. Like there were like it was very interesting because if you like zoomed out on any of the scenes, it would completely take you out. Like Liam and et al. To figure out a lot of interesting ways of like using this incredibly rural space to make this more like kind of contemporary like mystical space while also being able to like obviously use the rural space for all of the like really rural like Casey scenes and all that kind of stuff. So it was very interesting. I think a lot of if someone saw like a map of Rygate and where we filmed individual bits of the movie, they would all seem a little too close together for what actually was represented by those sets.
Yeah, it's really such a wide variety of like here's stuff in the forest that's like magical and mystical, but then we're literally going down the hill to Liam's neighbor's house to film the Casey scenes at
Yeah,
her farm.
or my favorite scene in the entire movie is the horse trailer that we used as Ash's treehouse, which is quite literally just
Yeah.
a horse trailer with like scrap plywood just kind of haphazardly like stitched onto it. Like it's such a beautiful like it's the I don't know if people know this. It's the actual inside of that horse trailer is like
Yeah,
we
that's
used
pretty wild that it is the same thing that we use the interior of the horse trailer for the interior of the horse trailer.
yeah,
It's not
it's
filmed
like a
somewhere
full
else.
set. Like it's like almost
Yeah.
it felt I feel like a lot of the sets felt very theatrical to me, which I feel like was really helpful for my like brain transitioning because me and Saskia have a theater background, if that hasn't been previously mentioned. And so like for me, like being like, oh, this is literally what it is. Like this is quite literally what it is. We need to adapt this space in this again very theatrical way. I felt like that was really helpful for me throughout the process. But then there were other ones that were a lot less literal. So it's good to have like stepping stone set pieces like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what other Oh, the train.
The train. Oh my, I completely forgot about the train. The train was insane. Not to rhyme, but it was two school buses that we shot from different angles. And Liam and Shauna and Owen were like carving this like silver backed foam to make that train. Like that is all none of it's practical. Like it's all completely or like it's practical in that it's real, but none of it like the door doesn't open, like none of that stuff like functions like a train. It's a school
Yeah,
bus. It's
not at
super tiny
all.
school buses. It was crazy.
Yeah, that when Liam explains to me that they were gonna take two school buses and have one school bus be one end of the train car and one be the other end of the train car, I was like, "You're a genius." This is
Truly,
incredible.
I don't know how he thought of it. I don't know where he got school buses, but it was such a genius move. And then I know you were doing the kind of lights during that. I was jumping on the front of the school bus to make it shake like a train during a lot of the
Incredible.
it was such an interesting like it felt very like I don't know, it felt very like old school, a lot of the ways that we were making things work, but like
Yeah.
seeing them, they ended up working really well. So
there's something that is so magical about like the energy that Vermont has.
Yeah, I feel like there was something about this movie that could not be made anywhere else. Like there was nothing that you could duplicate from the actual like brain conception of this that you could do with like anyone other than Liam and Shauna. Like I feel like
So
they
real.
were integral to the way that like everything was sourced, like down to the trash that's in the river in the background of scenes. Like the Queen's Tower exterior shots are of a 2 foot tall miniature you built. How did you fake tiny wood windows and corrugated sheet metal?
The magic of model building. I went to school for scene design, so at school I did a lot of model building. Um, and there, for some of the things, there exists miniature versions that you can buy. So you can buy like miniature like roof tiling and that sort of thing. But some of it, I was like, I'm gonna slice this sheet of cardboard in half, and the corrugation inside of the cardboard is gonna like make corrugated metal, and I'm gonna put some like fun and funky texture on top of it. Um, and like using coffee stirrer, like wooden coffee stirrers to make the wooden slats of the buildings. I went to my job and just picked up random objects that we had just lying around, like an old spool of thread or like paper towel rolls to create these like towers. Um, and I also did some foam carving to make fake stone, fake bricks, that sort of thing. There's so many different materials in there, everything from paper to wood to plastic to metal, and then all of it painted to look like it belongs to the world that we created. And then I built it in two sections and fit them both into a box with like the most padding you have ever seen and mailed it across the country to Liam and Shauna.
Just industrial bubble wrap on that thing.
Oh yeah, it was hardcore.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's so dope. I love model building so much. And I love how the model turned out when I watched the movie in full. I was like, ah, that looks dope. I have a question for you that's just mine. What kind of
Mm.
paint do you use on the exterior? Because I know some stuff you can't use on foam that you can use on like other materials.
I used some theatrical materials. So there are products that are like foam coat from Roscoe that are made specifically for coating things. Some stuff I did with spray paint because spray paint sticks to things better than sometimes normal house paint or acrylic paint does. The magical world within the film is covered in paint. In your mind, is there a magical paint charge that works in Butterfly Junction?
I think the butterfly queen is the magical charge. I love that question. That's great. I was thinking about it when I was doing like different areas, like what her favorite colors would be in a way, like what kind of things I should make more dominant. Like for me, I go with like red and blue are like kind of my more dominant colors, and because her color is purple, I was like, oh, I'll use a lot more red and blue because then that kind of allows for this transitional color between them to be like a little bit more pronounced. Whereas like greens and oranges and yellows, those aren't, they're more complementary to purple. So like I kind of tried to go with things that would vibe with what was already in like Helena's like beautiful costuming in different areas. Like some of the areas like with the exterior of the trailer, that's already red and blue. So I was like, okay, this is kind of her language. I want to have a little bit of Ash and Luca's relationship kind of present in like the nightclub, but other things like the river that's a little bit more like monstrous. I was like, okay, then I can use my like secondary tones a little bit more. I can use a little bit more of that green. I can use a little bit more of that orange. So that was kind of my thinking throughout it. I definitely used a little bit more of our primaries in the nightclub though, for sure.
Yeah, very real. That color story was like something that we focused on really early in the design process. Like each scene had like a different color palette that we decided on. And when I, even before I started on the project, when I started, Liam and Shauna sent me this beautiful packet that had all these reference images and each scene's color palette. and it was so helpful in designing all this stuff.
Oh,
It's a
I
great
love that. Yeah.
resource.
I
Yeah,
remember
and it's like really at the root of that collaboration that you're talking about, where Helena has like all of these choices of color that were made for the costumes. It's all coming from the same roots, the same conversation.
yeah, and like a lot of the stuff with like Helena's costumes, like if there was something that was going to be really present in the background, I wanted it to be intentional. Like I didn't want anything to detract from like Portalista or like the Enforcer or any of these other costumes. So I feel like that ended up reading though. I really love the color story for this movie. That was like the first thing when I signed on that like I like printed out every single reference you guys had put in the like Google Doc. I was like, okay, this is the world. We're gonna look at it and we're gonna figure out what goes with what's influenced by what. In your opinion, when the monster and the queen fall from the queen's tower, are they falling 60 feet and magically surviving, or only falling 2 feet and just being dramatic?
I mean, in reality, whenever a fall gets filmed in any film, they're falling 2 feet and being dramatic, as actors are. They're acting. Um, there's a lot of movie magic that goes on behind the scenes. Yeah, plus I love the drama of playing all of those underwater scenes. We had such a great time filming, especially the scene uh with Casey where they're in the schoolroom and everything starts floating.
That
And
is
one
my
person was like, what if we like, had some papers floating, like blew them around with a leaf blower? Or like, what if one of the chairs like lifted off the ground a little bit and suddenly we were all like lying on the floor, moving things around, throwing paper everywhere. It was so much fun.
that was probably my very favorite scene to shoot. It was just so fun. Like every single person got involved because like so much of like the filming process is like hurry up and wait. Like you got to make sure you're there in case they need you. But best case scenarios, they don't need you. And then in this scene, there was so much like every single person who was literally not like holding a camera or a boom was lifting
Yeah.
something and moving something and like creating this. It was so, and it looked so good.
that
Like,
that's the intersection of the falling 60 feet for real and the falling 2 feet and being dramatic is like even in those scenes that's the magic of making a movie really intersects with the magic that you're trying to make on screen.
yeah, I feel the same way about all the water scenes. Like it's just so, I mean, they were so cool to see filmed in the first place, just from like a like behind the scenes standpoint. But they have this like, yeah, that potency of like, oh, and this is the relatable part of the movie. This is the part where these characters are faced with like their innermost self and like what are they gonna do with it? Like we all have had, maybe not all of us have been to this like magical world, but all of us have had similar relationships to Casey and Ramen, similar relationships to Ash and Luca and like similar feelings to the butterfly queen. So it's like that's beautiful. Yeah, it's just so pretty. It's such a like
Yeah.
a satisfying conclusion for the butterfly queen.
You are the actual artist behind Ash and Luca's spray paint. How could Luca have been more safe when creating his final art piece?
I think Luca could have looked up the train schedule and could have decided to come back maybe 15 minutes later.
Yeah, just a different time of day.
I also can't
Maybe when
imagine.
it's light outside,
Truly, truly. I mean, I get the light situation being because they're doing something clandestine and secretive and illegal, but like, I
That's
just,
fair.
I've
Maybe
thought
something
about
we ride
this
at dawn, you know?
exactly. Like, why couldn't it have been like a Twilight situation or like a Dawn situation? But that's all right. We need an impetus for the movie to happen. Ash had to be traumatized
Exactly.
in order for everything else to happen.